Good evening. My name is Rita Melekian. I am a member of the Armenian Church University Students Association. On behalf of His Holiness Catholicos ԱΡԱՄ I, I warmly welcome you to this public lecture. This public lecture will proceed in the following way. First, Professor of International Relations, Dr. Nora Bayraktaryan, will make the opening remarks. Then, His Excellency, Dr. Luis Mօrէնօ Օքամփօ, founder and the first prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, will give a lecture about the following theme. After 75 years, why the world has failed to respond to the Genocide Convention. After the lecture, His Holiness will conclude this gathering with his remarks. Now, I invite Dr. Nora Bayraktaryan to present her introductory remarks.
Your Holiness, Catholicos ԱΡԱՄ I, Your Beatitude, Your Eminences, Excellencies, dear guests. The Genocide Convention was the first modern human rights treaty. It was adopted only one day earlier than the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which set the common standard of achievement for human civilization. The first text, the final text of the convention, was adopted at the 1948 General Assembly meeting held in Paris at the Palais de Chaillot. Within a few years, it had been ratified by more than 1/3 of the United Nations membership, enough for it to enter into force. 153 states ratified or acceded by April 2022. Around other 40 UN member states have yet to do so. Those who drafted the convention in 1948 had the prospect of creating an international system of criminal justice, despite the circumstances of the rising Cold War. Thus, the convention says that genocide will be tried either before the courts of the territory where the crime took place or by an international criminal court. That was at the time little more than wishful thinking. And that was not created until 45 years after the convention's adoption. In May 1993, the first of the ad hoc tribunals was established by the Security Council to address crimes in the former Yugoslavia. It was given jurisdiction to deal with genocide, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. 18 months later, the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda was created, called to adjudicate genocide and crimes against humanity. The establishment of the ad hoc tribunals provided a further spur to the establishment of an international criminal court, which would have global jurisdiction and be able potentially to respond to violations and most serious crimes of concern to the international community as a whole, which according to the Article 5 of the Statute are genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the crime of aggression. Therefore, the 1948 UN Convention on the Prevention and Protection of the Crime of Genocide has a special standing in international law. It constituted the visionary and founding text of the International Criminal Court and has influenced as such the subsequent development of many different areas of international law. It became the crucial pillar of the regime of international criminal law, developing since the 1990s, with genocide being one of the core crimes failing under the jurisdiction of the UN ad hoc tribunals and permanent International Criminal Court. It has set the international normative framework for the crime of genocide and recognized genocide as a crime under international law, whether committed in time of peace or in time of war. The Genocide Convention establishes a duty for state parties to prevent genocide and to enact legislation to criminalize and punish individuals responsible of its commission, regardless of whether they are public officials or private individuals. The International Court of Justice confirmed that the prohibition of genocide is certainly a peremptory norm of international law, or jus cogens, meaning, in the words of Article 53 of the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties, that it is accepted and recognized by the international community of states as a whole, as a norm from which no derogation is permitted. The practical significance of this designation is that if this norm and corresponding state obligations come into conflict with any other norm or rule of non-peremptory character, the obligation related to the prohibition of genocide will supersede it. Largely inspired by the first genocide of the 20th century, the Armenian genocide, the 1948 Genocide Convention was an attempt to eliminate the scourge of genocide from human experience. But the international community has overwhelmingly failed to uphold the Genocide Convention's mandate. The main two mandates established by the Convention, the prevention and the punishment, has gone unfilled. Some efforts were achieved with punishing the crime of genocide, but prevention of this extreme violence has eluded the international community for decades. In the past years, a number of confusing questions emerged from the interpretation of the Convention. Is the international community's failure to recognize genocide related to some ambiguities in the concept? Is the definition of victims of genocide compatible with the precise legal requirement of criminal prosecutions? Are there complexities related to the condition of proving intent? If identification is established, what are the emerging concerns related to process? Is the rigidity of the process related to the requirement of official recognition? Are there complexities related to the international legal concept and norm of state sovereignty? What are the emerging issues under the Genocide Convention when states seek to prevent genocide? After 76 years of the Genocide Convention, why the international community is failing to respond to the imperatives of the Convention? It is in the purpose of reflecting on the living legacy of the Genocide Convention and questioning the failure of a global commitment to prevent and punish genocide that the Armenian Catholicosate of Cilicia, by the initiative of His Holiness Catholicos ΑΡΑΜ I, organized this event and invited a distinguished keynote speaker, an eminent reference in international criminal justice, the first prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Mr. Luis Mօrէնօ Օքամփօ. Your Excellency, Mr. Ocampo, we are honored and privileged to welcome you today in the headquarters of the Armenian Catholicosate of Cilicia. Mr. Luis Mօrէnօ Օքամփօ was the first chief prosecutor of the Permanent International Criminal Court, based at The Hague. His office was involved in 20 of the most serious crimes of the 21st century. Mr. Ocampo has taught recent seminars in anti-corruption strategies at Stanford and Harvard, and is currently a senior fellow at the Jackson Institute for Global Affairs at Yale University, and a distinguished visiting scholar at New York University. His recent book, War and Justice in the 21st Century, published by the Oxford University Press, provides readers with unparalleled insight into the inner working of the International Criminal Court, from the unique perspective of its founding chief prosecutor. This book offers a deep dive into the complexities of contemporary warfare, the pursuit of justice on a global scale, and the evolving landscape of international law. In the context of his constant dedication to justice, and in the course of the recent tragic events in Nagorno-Karabakh, Mr. Ocampo issued an expert opinion entitled Genocide Against Armenians in 2023, assessing that the blockade of the Lachin corridor by the Azerbaijani security forces, impeding access to any food, medical supplies, and other essentials, should be considered a genocide under Article 2 of the Genocide Convention, confirming that genocidal intent behind the acts of the ICC and its jurisdiction in the case of Nagorno-Karabakh events. This report was largely discussed in the media and presented in specialized forums and constituted a valuable input in the search for the relevant legal grounds for the question. In the midst of the darkness of the moment, your report, Mr. Ocampo, constituted a candle of hope, enlightening the process, and we are deeply grateful for your valuable efforts and input. Dear guests, December 2024 will mark the 76th anniversary of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. On December 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Convention by unanimous vote. Yet, more than half a century later, there is ample room for pessimism about the role of the Convention as an instrument for the protection of human rights. We are living in an era where a normative role of legal frameworks is more than a priority, and the responsibility of the international community towards the respect and fulfillment of these norms, the precondition for a better future for the world and humanity. Thank you.
Now I invite His Excellency Dr. Luis Mօrēnօ Օքամփօ to deliver his lecture.
Your Holiness, thank you for inviting all of us to be here. It is a moment to be with Armenians in Lebanon. This is the key place. The world is facing serious problems, and here is the moment to start to face them. Thank you for inviting us. I was thinking how to present to you the information about what is happening, what we can do, and how, for me, the Armenian community in the world is the solution, not just for the genocide against Armenians, for all the genocide, to stop the wars, I believe it's crucial. And I was thinking, okay, I will start with two examples. First example, Garcia Abkarian. She born in Lebanon. Her family escaped from the genocide. She is a judge in California now. Yesterday, she took advantage of the institution that she mentioned, the International Criminal Court. She went there and presented information to the prosecutor to open a criminal investigation against President Aliyev for genocide. The novelty, okay, this is news also, but the novelty was that she's not just talking about Nagorno-Karabakh. She showed that the incidents in Armenia itself since 2021 should also be considered a genocide. And that's something we are missing. Because basically, genocide is a crime of intention. You need the intention to destroy a group. And normally, lawyers say, oh, it's so difficult to prove intention. Well, in the Armenian case, it's not the case. Consistently, since the last 10 years, President Aliyev made clear statement saying that he had intention to destroy the Armenians, not just from Nagorno-Karabakh, from Armenia itself. Just two quotes for that. I'm a prosecutor, so I like to present evidence of what I'm saying. In April 2015, so almost 10 years ago, he was talking about ethnic Armenians, not just Nagorno-Karabakh. He said, if you do not want to die, then get out of Azerbaijani lands. For President Aliyev, Armenia is Western Azerbaijan. He does not believe Armenia is Armenia. He believes Armenia, the land, is Western Azerbaijan. So since 2015, he's saying that clearly. Move out of our land. And of course, when he removed the Nagorno-Karabakh people, he also makes similar statements. He say, I say, President Aliyev say, in September 2023, I say that if they, ethnic Armenians, do not leave our lands of their own free will, we will chase them away like dogs, and we are doing that. So that is the comment he made 8 years later about Nagorno-Karabakh people. For me, what is remarkable in the presentation of Judge Abkarian is that she mentioned this is the first genocide authorized by a parliament. Few months ago, the Azerbaijan parliament mentioned the importance to recover Western Armenia. Western Azerbaijan means Armenia. So the parliament in Azerbaijan, who is completely controlled by President Aliyev, established clearly that authorized to commit the genocide. And that's why it's important, sometimes information is there and we are not understanding it. And with Judge Abkarian, who grew up in Lebanon, she went to the high school here. That's why I'd like to show you, we need this type of Armenian people, understanding the roots, fighting for the cause. She understood that, and in the last 4 years, when she saw what's happening, she built a center, what is called the Center for Truth and Justice in California. And they organized themselves to collect evidence. And 4 years later, I mean yesterday, she went to The Hague, she went to the International Criminal Court, and she delivered documents, a long list of documents and testimonies showing the point. And she said, the method is always the same. President Aliyev surround the places, instill fear in the people, and then push them to remove them. President Aliyev does not need to kill many. In Nagorno-Karabakh, you cannot stay in Nagorno-Karabakh after they bombed you. I have a statement of one Artak Baglarian who explained to me, look, I was living in Nagorno-Karabakh, and okay, I don't know if you know Artak Baglarian. When he was 5, his father was killed in the war in Armenia. When he was 6, he was playing in his yard with a friend, and they took a mine, trying to dismantle, and the mine exploded. His friend lost his arm and his leg, and he lost the sight. He became blind. His mother sent him to study in Yerevan, and she died when she was 16. And it's another good example of what Armenian means. Artak, blind, orphan, keep studying, finish his studies in Yerevan. He took a position, he got a grant to go to Oxford University. He stayed there for 1 year doing a master, blind, alone in London. I think it was I don't remember if it was Oxford or London King College, in the King College. He stayed in London for 1 year alone, blind, studying, finished the master, went back to Nagorno-Karabakh because he wanted to serve his people. Then he got another grant to go to Tufts University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Again, alone, blind, studying, another year. Back to Nagorno-Karabakh because he is totally committed to protect Nagorno-Karabakh, to be there for his people. He had 2 girls. So he was discussing with his wife. When the Lachin Corridor blockade started, he was discussing with his wife how much risk our girls can take. Imagine, man and wife discussing the risk for the girls, and they accepted starvation is okay. We can manage starvation, but we cannot manage being killed. I cannot forget myself. I cannot allow myself to put my girls at the risk of being killed. So, in September, when the bombing started, they decided, okay, it's time to go. And that's why they escape. And that's what I admire in the Armenian community. And he's now living in Armenia, trying to see how to go back to Nagorno-Karabakh, singing his return, leading his people. And that's what the world needs. The world needs this type of Armenians, smart, understanding the meaning of a genocide in their body, in their family, and making smart decisions how to confront it. That's why Judge Gaziab-Karian yesterday move was so important. And let me explain, because I liked your introduction very much. I like you summarize the legal evolution. And that was happening now. Because in 1915, there was no law. There was no genocide convention. There was no court. Today, we are different. We have the convention. We have the court up and running. The International Criminal Court has 20 years of experience. And the prosecutor is ready. And Romania signed the treaty. And the prosecutor can investigate crimes committed in Armenia since 2021. And that's new. The issue is, I don't think it's a problem with the legal characterization. That is the lawyer's problem, understanding. I think it's more about the convention is very important because it's the only convention that the country's signatories are committed to prevent the crimes. There's no other law, international treaty saying that. Normally, states sign the treaty and say, okay, I did it, I do nothing else. No, the Genocide Convention requests the signatories to prevent the genocide. And that's unique. So what the states do to avoid the problem, because the states don't like to take problems outside their land. So in order to respect this idea, the need to prevent, the states make enormous efforts to ignore genocide, to deny genocide. There's a wonderful book from Samantha Power wrote about how in 1915 the US ambassador in Turkey was informing his own country about the genocide. Similar, the German ambassador informed, look, what is happening in Armenia is not just random attacks. It's a plan. It's a plan. Basically, she presented since May 2021, Aliyev is surrounding, affecting communities in Gegar Kunik, Syunik, Bayot Zor, and Ararat. She got evidence of all of this. The forces are not going inside the towns. They just surround the towns. We have music now. It's fine. So the Aliyev forces are surrounding the villages or making the villagers feel afraid. That's what he's doing. And the plan is to remove them and conquer these lands. It's a step-by-step going up. And so she presents that and show the pattern, similar pattern that what happened in Nagorno-Karabakh. What will happen with this? At the International Criminal Court, the only person who can start a case is the prosecutor. So she is not opening a case against Aliyev. She is allowing the prosecutor to start a case. The current prosecutor will do it or not, we don't know. But could happen. I suppose Mr. Aliyev one day will be indicted. And one day he had to face justice. Will be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I don't know. I personally, when I was the prosecutor, I indicted President Bashir for genocide in Sudan, in Darfur. And people say, oh, what will happen? Why are you doing this? Nothing will happen. I said, look, it's bleeding. President Bashir is a lion bleeding. One day he will be in jail. Will be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I was right. He's in jail. Nothing before the International Criminal Court. He's in jail in Sudan itself. The problem is still an ongoing genocide in Darfur. So the fact that we have a person indicted, even a president indicted, is not the final solution. That's something I have to clarify with you. The law is working, but it took so much time because it's so complicated. It was so complicated to get the case because in Darfur case, just to show you the mechanics, in Darfur case, I was the prosecutor, I knew about Darfur, but I could do nothing because Sudan is not a state party of the Rome Treaty that creates the International Criminal Court. So the prosecutor can just intervene when the state became a party. That's why Armenia moved last year to become a state party, allow us the prosecutor to do a case. That was not my case in Darfur. In Darfur was a convoluted process. Finally, the Security Council referred the situation to us. So I could do it. Then we had to collect evidence around the world. Took years. Then indicted Mr. Bashir. Then get energy from states to do something. In those days, President Obama was in charge. And they explained to me, we have 3 agendas with Sudan. War on terror, we need intelligence from Sudan, independence of South Sudan, and stop the genocide. You are affecting our agendas, but we'll see how to manage. What Obama presidency did is they used the genocide charges to leverage their negotiation skills and say, okay, we are not pushing more for the genocide arrest, but you have to respect South independence and help us in the war on terror. And Bashir agreed. So it took like 10 years more to finally remove him from power. So this story is just to tell you, law is important, international criminal court is important, it provides leverage to you, but it's not the final solution. Even if President Aliyev is in jail in 20 years, but if the genocide continue, we are not doing our job. So I'm mentioning the Ghazi Abkarian because it's not just she's pushing for a case before the International Criminal Court. She's alerting us. It's not just about Nagorno-Karabakh. They're coming for Armenia. And that is the line. So we need to keep fighting for Nagorno-Karabakh. No one can ignore that. And it's more. I believe Nagorno-Karabakh people have the right to return, to be safe, and to be compensated. But also, for me, it's urgent to talk about the Nagorno-Karabakh prisoners. Because there are more than 20 people today in Baku prisons. And the only reason to be there is to send a signal to the Nagorno-Karabakh people. We are destroying you. You have to be afraid of us. If you go back to your land, you will be killed or in prison. That's it. And it's interesting, I know many of you are historians, and you have to tell me more. It's similar to 1915. In 1915, one of the first strategies was to cut the head, no? Kill the leaders. Killing the leaders is a way to control the community. And that's why having the leaders in prison is a way to control Nagorno-Karabakh people. And I believe that the priority this year for the Armenians should be to force Aliyev to release the prisoners. They cannot stay in jail. There's no reason to be in jail. They are victims of genocide. They're a signal. There's a way. The imprisonment is a message to Nagorno-Karabakh people: do not come back. Don't dream to come back. As soon as they are prisoners, no one will do it. At the end of this year, Azerbaijan is organizing a huge meeting in Baku. It's clear that if we are good and we are making clear these people are prisoners in Baku, this meeting could not happen. Europeans, Americans cannot go to Baku when in the jails are genocide prisoners. That's why for me, releasing the prisoners from Baku is the first step, not the last step. It's just the first step that we have to focus. And in this sense, I believe Mrs. Abkarian filing is helping us, because now we have a strong document showing that what happened today in Armenia is already a genocide and could not be ignored. And we need to transform the denial of the Americans and the Europeans on that. I am shocked that the European Commissioner, Mrs. Ursula von der Leyen, is saying that Mr. Aliyev is a partner you can trust, while Mr. Aliyev is committing a genocide. In Germany, how a German leader could ignore a genocide? So that, for me, is some of the activities diaspora could help. Diaspora should organize meetings, letters, conversations, all the influence you can have, and it's a lot, to reach this woman, explain, look, what you are doing is wrong. What you think could not happen. Change or be replaced. That should happen. So you cannot stop a genocide in Armenia, but you can transform the behavior. The problem is, the law is there, but there is no central authority to manage the law. So, yes, there's a chief prosecutor, there's a criminal court, but there's not a global government. So, we are at the mercy of the governments who are involved in the big crisis, like the US, Russia, Israel now, Iran. So these people, these authorities decide our fate. This morning, I came in, my plane was crossing a drones going from Israel to Iran in retaliation of missiles that Iran sent to Israel a few days ago, in retaliation because Israel airstrike the embassy of Iran in Syria. So, and we have no chance to influence on Israeli authorities, on Iran authorities, or US authorities, or Russian authorities, because we are living in Armenia, or I live in California. Okay, but I'm not a citizen, I don't vote. My country is Argentina. So, my point is, we need to find a way to gain representation. We need to find a way through the diaspora to be involved, to convince the Iranian authorities, the Russian authorities, the American authorities, the Israeli authorities, the European authorities, stop this. This is nonsense. Humanity could not go in this way. War could not be normal. War could not be normal. I remember 20 years ago when US was talking to invade Iraq, there were millions of people around the world demonstrating. Now, we have wars in Ukraine, wars in Israel, and no one's talking about it. Ukraine is almost disappeared from the front pages. Syria, we don't talk about Syria. Okay, war became normal. Should not. That's why, thank you, Catholicos. Thank you for inviting us to understand this is not normal. We should do something better, something bigger, something more. And that's the idea. I imagine today we have a meeting to discuss more specific ideas, but today for me was to give you a general picture. Okay. And I decided to start with Gassi Abkarian. My second character will be Carlos Arslanian. I don't know if you know Carlos Arslanian. He's the son of one of the victims of the genocide. In fact, his family, his aunts and his father arrived to Lebanon, escaping from the genocide. His wife, and his brother here in Lebanon, and took a ship to Argentina, to Buenos Aires. He did not speak Spanish at all. So he went to Buenos Aires, and after 2 years, he's so smart and able that he came back to Lebanon to recover his family, his sisters and his brother, and went back to Buenos Aires. So they live in Buenos Aires. The son of this man, Carlos Arslanian, had the idea of justice in his vein. So he decided, I will join the judiciary in Argentina. I will be a judge. So he went to the court. He was a student. So he wanted to start to work as a clerk. So he went to the office, recruiting human resource office, and the manager in charge said, your name is Carlos Arslanian? Yes, my name. And you have family here? No, I have no family here. You have friends here? No. Well, forget. You never will be appointed here. No, to be a judge, family have to be here, friends here. If not, you never will be a judge. That's impossible. This is the court of justice. What? I'm sorry, boy. Go out. You never will get the job. So Carlos was going out, and he saw a signal, court number 1. He knocked the door. Who are you? Carlos Arslanian. What do you want? I want to talk to the judge. Why? Because it's injustice here. I cannot be appointed. So the judge listened some noise about it, and he said, hey, young guy, come here. Who are you? Carlos Arslanian. I want to be a judge, and they are not allowing me to start my career. And then he asked, why you want to be a judge? Well, because I'm Armenian. I know about injustice. I want to do justice. Okay. So basically the judge said, can you type He said, yes, of course. Okay, and you have law, yeah. Come next week, we'll test you. If you're okay in the test, we'll appoint you. So Carlos Arellano had no idea how to type. So he went, in Argentina, there was an academy called Pittman to study typewriting. So he spent 1 week studying typewriting. Next week, he came back, was approved, adopted, and he became an employee. In 1985, Carlos Arellano was the president of the court that convicted our army, our generals, the dictators. So in 1985, Argentina convicted its dictators. And Carlos Arellano was the president of the court. That's Armenians, okay? That's what Armenians are. I was the deputy prosecutor. I was young in those days, I was 32. So I was deputy prosecutor in the case. And it was a pleasure to see Arellano managing the court. In a very complex case, we indicted 9 generals and charged them for torturing, abducting, torturing, and disappearing, and killing thousands of people. So it was a very complex case. We had to investigate it in 5 months, and we had hearings for 5 months, sorry. I was telling today to the Catholicos, that trial teach me about the meaning of justice. My mother was against me. My grandfather was a general. So my mother loved General Videla, our dictator. She said, no, Luis, you are wrong, you're wrong. I went to church with General Videla. He's a nice guy. It's like it was spread around the world. So more than 20 million people watch it. And it's interesting for me, that's why I believe this idea of the global community is growing. I was invited to discuss a movie in countries close to Argentina, like Chile, Brazil, and Spain. But I was teaching, your resume is old. I was teaching at Harvard last 6 years. So I was teaching at Harvard, and one of my students told me, I am from Chechnya. You have no idea how relevant your film is for us. Chechnya. Because a case against dictators is about dictators. So any country in the world who had a dictatorship understood that. And that's why the film is about them. And 38 years later, a good film director was able to present the problem to new generations, crossing the time, and people living in Chechnya, in cruising space. That's why we are globally communicated, but we have no global representation. And that is, for me, the role of the diaspora, building the gap between representation to those who are not underrepresented. In the last, there is, as I don't know if you know, there is one UN General Advisor on the prevention of genocide. To understand UN is basically a place where the states meet. Someone say, blaming the UN Security Council for the lack of security in the world is like blaming the Madison Square Garden because the Knicks play bad basketball. So the Madison Square Garden is a stadium in New York where the Knicks play basketball. The UN building is a building where the ambassadors from different states meet. But it's not a global authority on them. That is the problem we have, okay? So that's why the idea to fill the gap of representation is crucial. And that's why the diaspora, Armenian, could lead, would not be alone. I'm not Armenian. I love Armenian, but I'm not Armenian. But I really understood the importance to replace war for justice. And that's why I will be with you. I am with you. That's why Mariano Alpatian and other friends from Argentina asked me in August what we can do about Nagorno-Karabakh crisis. And of course I became involved. Okay, maybe I explain that, how I became involved. Mario and other friends of mine, including Carlos Arellano, asked me, okay, Luis, you understand international relations. How can we do something on Nagorno-Karabakh? I said, okay, let me start the problem. And then I found Armenia presented the case before the International Court of Justice about the treaty against discrimination. So it's not about genocide. The case is about discrimination. But I found that the Lachin corridor blockade was discussed there. And in fact, 15 judges from the International Court of Justice say very clearly, blocking the Lachin corridor creates the risk of extermination for the Armenians, for a specific group, the Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh. So, and they told in February 2023, President Aliyev, you have to ensure free transit through the Lachin corridor. I was thinking, okay, that defined the problem, because then what President Aliyev did, instead to free the corridor, he blocked it. He put security forces in charge of blocking, blocking the corridor. And 3 months later, he fully blocked the corridor. So in August, I said, okay, the Lachin corridor is fully blocked. President Aliyev is refusing to respect the order of the International Court of Justice. And so he had the intention to destroy the group. Genocide, and this is a legal thing, genocide is not just killing. Killing is one of the forms to commit a genocide. There are other forms. 6A, active genocide, 2A is killing, 2B is causing serious body or mental harm, and C is inflicting conditions to destroy the group. C, inflicting conditions to destroy the group, does not require one person dying. Just the conditions are there. And that was happening in Nagorno-Karabakh for months. Arta was telling me they had no food for the kids, for the girls. So people were starvation. Aliyev knew it because the court said that. And Aliyev refused to comply. I regret because I did this report a little late, because the report had repercussions, but we were late to transform the game. I produced a report in August, and at the beginning of September, a member of the House in the US invited me to provide testimony in the House. I explained this case, and then he sent a letter to President Biden informing him about this. And that triggered also a council on foreign the Committee on Foreign Relations from the US Senate, calling Ambassador Kim, who was in charge of the region, asking what you are doing. And even members of the community, like Eric Israelian, were publishing about, and Kim Kardashian was promoting, so we get some attraction. But we're late. So this was happening at the beginning of September, and Aliyev was ready to invade on September 19, Nagorno-Karabakh. And the Americans were adjusting the position, but not ready to really protect Armenians in Nagorno-Karabakh. And Russia say, well, Armenian government say Nagorno-Karabakh is part of Azerbaijan, so we have nothing to do. So basically, suddenly, all the people were removed. That is the International Court of Justice also said after that this removal was consequence of the attack of the Aliyev forces. So we have clearly a case of Article 2C, inflicting conditions, and now 2B, creating moral harm. Imagine how desperate you are to live in one day, all your properties, all your belongings to escape. So that is moral harm. And that was happening in Nagorno-Karabakh. That's why it's a genocide under 2C and 2B. One of the problems with that is the Armenian government cannot present or cannot authorize the International Criminal Court to intervene in Nagorno-Karabakh because Nagorno-Karabakh was an autonomous enclave in Azerbaijan. But what happened is one precedent that could be useful. A couple years ago, 4 years ago, in Burma, the Rohingya were attacked, and they escaped to Bangladesh. And the International Criminal Court, okay, say, we have no jurisdiction in Burma, but we have jurisdiction in Bangladesh. And in fact, these people escaping are victims of crimes against humanity, who is happening when you cross international borders. Deportation. Deportation is a form of crime against humanity when you cross international borders. So the court found that because these people were deported, the court could investigate this crime, crimes against humanity, as a deportation as a crime against humanity. That's why the court is investigating this genocide against Rohingya, committed originally in Myanmar, but consequently in Bangladesh. So that precedent allows the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court to investigate the Nagorno-Karabakh genocide, okay? In the meantime, it's something very important that you can do, because after the event of September, at the beginning of December, Jim O'Brien, the new head of the area of the Caucasus, said to the US Congress that they will conduct an investigation on what happened. They never talk about this again. It will be very important that the Americans are not going down, recognize it's a genocide committed in Nagorno-Karabakh. So that's something we have to push. Keep pushing. You know about that. You were pushing for 100 years the genocide in 1915. Okay, it's very sad, but I have to push now because of the new genocide committed against Armenian. The good thing is you know how to do that. You have experience. My point is, don't give up. Don't give up. How much? In Argentina, we prosecuted generals. And I was thinking, okay, we're transforming Argentina into Sweden. No, Argentina is not Sweden at all. It's still a chaos. But there is no more dictatorship, no more coup d'etat, no more massive human rights abuses. We have economic crisis, political crisis, many things, but things are not going down to the wrong things. And that is for me the point. We cannot transform the world in a perfect world. No. And that's why if you dream, you can fix things forever. No. That's why what happened today, these years in Armenia, is showing us we never win. We never have total victory. But the day you stop asking for justice, you lose. You lose the day you stop. That's why my comment to you is never give up. Never give up. You're Armenians. You're from Lebanon. You understand genocide. You understand wars. You understand conflict. And you're resilient. So that's why thank you so much, Catholic, to inviting us here. Because it's an opportunity to understand what's happening, be together, and keep fighting. Keep fighting. Garcia Abkarian, Carlos Alanian, Arda Beglarian are just examples of you. People who are smart and fighting and do things. And that is, for me, what we need to do. That's why, for me, it was very important to explain, okay, we have a genocide in Nagorno-Karabakh, but it's not the last thing happening. It's now happening today in Armenia itself. And I respect Armenian government. I would never, so they had to deal with the problem they have. It's very complicated. But from outside, we have to help Armenian exposing what is happening, exposing the truth of what is happening. And that's why this communication presented yesterday is not just to obtain a prosecutor investigation. It's more than that. It's to obtain the US cannot deny the genocide. The European Union cannot deny the genocide. Russia cannot deny the genocide. So countries, powerful countries, should understand and help to stop this. It's not future if we allow the genocide to continue being committed. I mentioned, because I start with conversation, The UN Special Advisor on Genocide, she cannot say something is a genocide. That's why the states manage the issue. The states want to be able to deny. So they created a position called UN Special Advisor on Genocide that could not say it's a genocide. So what she could say, there's a risk of genocide. That's what she say. And she was brave enough to mention the last 8 months, there is a risk of genocide against Rohingya, against Darfuris, against Tigray in Ethiopia, against Nagorno-Karabakh people, against Israelis, and against Gaza. 6 genocides. 75 years after the Genocide Convention was adopted, we have ongoing 6 genocides. Why? I believe the problem is we have global ideas, but no global institutions to manage them. So people need protection. Armenians need protection. And then people go back to the tribal idea. The head of my tribe will protect me. Everywhere. In Europe, the right wings are winning because people are afraid. Trump is winning because people are afraid. So we need to understand, okay, we need protection, and we have to be smarter, not go back to the tribalism, because tribalism promote wars. And wars in the 21st century is the end of humanity. War is an obsolete mechanism to manage conflicts. No one will survive. Albert Einstein say, I don't know how the Third World War will be fought, but I know the fourth will be with rocks. No more civilization. The world will disappear. So that's why this is a crucial moment. And that's why, thank you, Católicos, for inviting us, because it's a moment to understand, it's not just a seminar, it's not a conversation, it's a crucial decision for us. We cannot deal with it alone. We need a global community. And that's why the Armenian community could be the leaders. You are there, you are in the world, you understand genocide. You need to, and then you have to understand it's a moment to go back to your resilience, go back to Garcia Karian example, Carlos Alena example, show how you can lead us. And then we'll be with you. Not just normal people who are against wars, but also everyone, the Rohingya, the Tigray, everyone, all the victims of genocide will be with you. So, you have more? It's okay? Finish? I think, I don't know what else I don't like to go to legal details. I like to present this more in broader sense. Yes, we have law. That's very important, because now we can say it's a genocide. Look, I remember I was invited to be at the beginning with the Yazidis, and I remember they were shocked what happened to them. And the only thing that helped them is to understand, oh, it's a genocide against us. It's like a genocide gives clarity, what is happening to us. But for the Yazidis was in some way clear. I feel for the Armenians it's complicated, because you could not believe you will be the victim of genocide again. You could not believe that. No one can believe that. I remember in 2023, I was insisting it's a genocide against Armenians in 2023, and people were shocked. No, they don't like to recognize that. Now it's different. But I feel now it's why it's important? Why it's important to understand it's a genocide? Because without the genocide categorization, Nagorno-Karabakh people have no rights. Nagorno-Karabakh people are just Azerbaijan citizens. Why they should request a special protection? No, it's the genocide that protects them to be mistreated. Is the genocide the only international treaty that requests all the states preventing genocide? That's why going back to the genocide idea is crucial. And I think something is to be done with the Armenian leaders. It's interesting. Okay, let me, a little long story. Like 3 months ago, a young girl, Armenian, invited me to give a speech at Irvine University. It's in California, 100 kilometers from my house. So I told the girl, look, I'm interested, but it's a very long trip. You have to pay me. You have to do 20 TikToks. You pay me with 20 TikToks. Your friends do TikTok asking their parents, their grandmother, is what happened today in Nagorno-Karabakh a genocide or not? She said, okay. I like the girl because 2 days before the event, I called her and said, look, we have to publish this TikTok. At least you have 10, show me 10. And she was furious with me. You told me 20. I will pay you 20. I had 20. So she did 20 TikTok. And I was shocked because 20 of 20, the people, the parents, the grandmother say, it's a genocide. Of course it's a genocide. So Armenian families know it's a genocide. I don't hear the same conviction in Armenian leaders of communities. I don't know why. Maybe in the US, they don't like to confront the government, the US government. I don't know. But I think that's something you can do inside. Guys, what happened today is a genocide against us again. It's better to call it because it's what's happening. Call it genocide and then take it so seriously that it's have to prevent it. It could not happen again. So, but it's a genocide. That for me is a very important point. Nagorno-Karabakh is a genocide. What happened today in Armenia is a genocide. We cannot ignore an Azerbaijan parliament decision removing Armenia from what they call Western Azerbaijan. It's ridiculous. So that is, for me, so important, so serious to say, this is what's happening. And then, I suppose we have a couple of days to discuss, but each of you what you could do. You cannot prosecute people. You cannot fight, but you can influence those who are making decisions on this. That is, for me, the goal. Maybe through the church, you can organize monthly meetings in your church around the world where we can brief the people and keep them updated. Maybe you can talk to the Pope and the Jewish rabbis and the imams and organize a meeting to all the leaders to stop the genocide, because it's interesting. Tigray, I also like Orthodox. No? Tigray religion is like your religion. In Darfur, the victims are Muslims. So they're victims from any community. So we should try to find a religious collective action to stop this nonsense. You can work on the media. You can do films. Kids to do TikToks. None of us will solve alone the problem. But if we're together, we'll do it. That's the point. So I think it's time for me to finish. I think for me, it's encouraging to be here. My first visit Beirut. I always loved to come to Beirut. Today, crossing with the drones, it was, for me, a good, interesting experience. But I really like the idea that you embrace me, you invite me to be with you. This is the condecoration of Armenia, so I'm honored to have this condecoration for Armenia. I really like the idea that you embrace me, and I like the idea to support you and work together. Because if not, our kids have no future. So this is about our future, the future of our kids. Thank you very much for inviting us.
Now I invite His Holiness to share with us his closing remarks.
In response to the challenge made by His Excellency Luis Mօrէնօ Օքամփօ, I would like to start my concluding remarks with a strong affirmation, I'm sure on behalf of all Armenians of this world, that we will never give in or give up in our struggle for justice. As we come to conclude this, I would say, challenging and timely event, I would like to express my warm thanks and great appreciation to His Excellency for coming all the way from the other side of the globe to share with us his rich insights and existential experiences as the founder and the first prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. Some of the issues that he has raised in his presentation will be further discussed in depth tomorrow morning when we start our conference dedicated to Artsakh. Crime against humanity, including, of course, genocide, has three interrelated dimensions: prevention, investigation and punishment, and compensation. As I said, these three dimensions are interconnected. As you heard, that the focus of International Court, Criminal Court, is on investigation and punishment. But before that, I believe that prevention is a crucial and probably more critical and a long process that must be taken very seriously by the international community. Therefore, within this framework, I would like to share with you, of course, briefly, a few perspectives. First, prevention of crime against humanity should start at home on the national level. Recognition and respect for human rights is of utmost importance. In fact, when human rights are neither respected and nor protected, and might is considered right, I repeat, might is considered right, such a perception and practice may lead to crimes against humanity. Second, silence vis-à-vis genocides simply means its endorsement. Impunity will encourage new genocides. It will make never again become once again. Therefore, impunity should not be granted to those who have committed crimes against humanity. 3, if international law is not fully implemented, it will become a sheer concept on the paper. Accountability is crucial as an effective preventive measure. I believe that the international community must go beyond juridical processes and impose its political will. This will imply creation of early warning systems, building public awareness through education, imposing diplomatic and economic sanctions, and in extreme situations, restoring to humanitarian intervention. And I am sure that His Excellency will not agree with me, because we discussed this matter today during the lunch. 4, crime against humanity is a crime against God. This is what our faith reminds us. Respect for human dignity, freedom, justice, peace, intolerance, non-violence are core values in all religions. Therefore, each religion in its own way has a particular responsibility to promote and protect ethical and human rights values. 5, the creation of a global governance with effective mechanisms to implement its decisions is a must. I believe that it will significantly help prevent crimes against humanity. And finally, retributive justice and restorative justice in their close interconnectedness are also preventive measures. In other words, justice is the most efficient way of preventing crimes against humanity. Some 10 years ago, in a context of an international conference in Geneva, speaking about crimes against humanity, I said that all those who have perpetrated crimes against humanity must become accountable and they must be punished. One of the participants said, "Your Holiness, forgiveness is part of our Christian faith." I said, "Correct. But forgiveness presupposes, forgiveness implies confession, acceptance of sin. This is not only Christian way, this is human way. Yes, for reconciliation, for forgiveness, on the basis of accepting the sin, the crimes committed against humanity." In the introductory remarks, you heard that His Excellency in the last year has issued 2 important reports about Karabakh. He has mainly focused his attention on these reports on the blockade and deportation. And he has considered these 2 actions on the basis of international law as genocide. And these 2 documents have become part of the discussion of the many organizations and countries, etc. Therefore, we are immensely grateful for your support, for your courageous and academic and professional action by reminding the international community that, as you said, genocide is genocide. And the blockade, according to the Genocide Convention, and deportation, again, according to the Genocide Convention, is indeed genocide. Therefore, as a concrete expression of our thanks and appreciation, it gives me a special honor to decorate His Excellency with the insignia of Knight, Aspedi Shekanashan of our church. Please. You see here the unity of Armenia and Cilicia. We are one nation.
We thank you for your attendance. I invite you to join us to the reception that will take place at the entrance of the Haram.